Okay, it is time for our deep dive. And as you know, we're doing a superpower series right now. So, a couple frivolous, fun questions. Your favorite superhero, if you have one.
Okay. Well, I don't really do superheroes,
I know.
but I thought about it and I thought, well, when I was little, the only one really that there was for us girls was Wonder Woman. And
Yeah.
I thought about, well, why? Why did I kind of look up to her other than the fact that she's really the only one I saw? But I think it was because of a couple of things. Number one, she was able to defend herself, she was strong.
Uh-huh.
She had a lasso that made people tell the truth.
Yeah.
Pretty cool superpower to have, right? And then the last thing was she had an invisible plane. I mean, like, who doesn't want one of those, right? So I feel like she had this way of kind of getting where she needed to go, kind of undercover. If someone did realize that she was there, she could defend herself. But then when she got the bad guys, she was able to get the truth out of them. And I don't know,
Yes.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, those are really good reasons. I like that. Really good reasons. Okay, if you could have a superpower, a superhero superpower, what would it be?
Okay. Don't know that you would have ever heard this one before. I really had to think about it. I would like to be able to instill peace wherever I go.
Oh gosh.
And I would like to, if I could have a second one that went with it, I would want an invisibility cloak so that the people I was instilling the peace with didn't know that I was doing it. They actually just thought that
Oh,
he would be.
that is so good. That is so good. And I love the reasons for both of those and them going together and being able, yeah, because I can already tell you you're a humble individual. So you're not trying to go around getting all this credit for instilling peace. You want to instill the peace and then kind of peace out, as they say, just kind of back up and let the peace continue on.
Can you imagine just like walking in the midst of like NATO or some kind of
Oh.
war, right? And nobody knows you're there, but as you walk through, just peace breaks out. How cool would that be?
Yes. Oh, yes, that would be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, see imagination at work right there. Yeah, your imagination.
Yeah.
That's
I told you I
wonderful.
was a storyteller. This is how I think.
Yes, it's wonderful. All right, so okay, let's get down to human terms. What is your superpower?
Well, I don't know that I would have thought of this immediately, but I have heard it from so many people. And so that's how I know it's true. Encouragement. I'm an encourager.
Oh,
No
yes.
matter whether I know the people well or whether they're a complete stranger, I just have this ability to kind of combine my genuine love of people and love of God into whatever situation. And I'm really someone who has learned to find the good, right? So I'm able to find things that are good, even in bad situations, and then be able to help somebody else get to that place. And I've heard that I have encouraged many people.
Oh,
And the things that I like to share are encouraging too. The things I take pictures
right.
of, or draw, or write about, or even podcast about. In my
Mhm.
podcast, we look at, it's called A Cup of Gratitude, and I learned how to develop gratitude during one of the worst times in my life. It's a choice, it's a discipline, right? It's not something that you're just happy all the time. You're choosing to look for the good.
I think that is an excellent point that it is a choice and it does, that it's a discipline that it needs to be cultivated. You have to focus on it. It's too easy to go down the path that's dark and worrisome and all those things and having to, really look for the good, I
Yep.
think is um really does require some. I think it seems like the quote unquote bad stuff is easy and the good stuff is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, in super general terms, but I think there's some truth to that.
It's the same thing we were talking about earlier about growing. Growing's hard. Healing's hard. There's pain involved a lot of times in the things. Like if you go to the gym and you're lifting weights to get stronger, the reason why your muscles hurt are as you're lifting the weights, there's all these little tears that happen in your
Yes.
muscles. And as they're healing, when they've healed, then you can carry more weight, you can lift more weight. And so it's pretty much how life works. A lot of the things that in the moment feel uncomfortable, in the moment feel painful, when healed, can actually lend a hand to others. You can use whatever circumstance you've been through, and you can be an encouragement to the person who doesn't know hope yet, who hasn't gotten to the other side yet.
Right. That, yes, that, and I really appreciate that your superpower, and I think this is true of superpowers, it's really meant to come out of you and be shared. It's
Mhm.
not meant for you to just cling it for yourself and just, and have it. It's meant to come out into the world
I
to
think so. I
affect
think
change.
I think we're all given things that God deposits in us on purpose.
Yes.
They're not meant for us. They are meant to be given away. They're meant to be used in servanthood. They're meant to be shared with the world. And if we were able to see the big picture, from where he can see
Yeah.
it from his vantage point, uh, I'm sure it would be the most beautiful geometric thing, right? That
Right.
all of the things you got and all of the things I got and everybody in the world all working in tandem at the same time, right? It's this beautiful symphony, if everyone's using what they've been given. Now, not everyone
Right.
uses what they've been given,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
some of us are being affected by negative things that are happening. And I think
Mhm.
part of your superpower is learning to give that over to God, let go of it, and or heal from it and move forward.
Right. Right. No, those are really good points. And I really agree with everything you're saying, and the way you're saying it is the way you describe it and explain it and share it really, it just makes a lot of sense to me. And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. What advice would you give to somebody? Have you ever met somebody who feels like they don't have like a gift, or they don't have a special thing? What advice? First of all, I think we would both say that is not true. You do. So what advice would you give to somebody who says, "Well, I don't have a superpower"? How would they find what it is?
I always say that it's at the intersection of your passions, like what things are you passionate about, and your life experiences, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be negative things, but most of the time it is. Most of the time it's something you've made your way through, and now you're passionate about it and you advocate for it naturally because you've made it through and you have this tender place in your heart for other people going through it. And again,
Right.
I'm Christian, so for me, that's your ministry, right?
Right.
And I believe that God will give you all of these different talents and attributes and ways about who you are, and then the world and fallenness and all the different things that are happening. A lot of things will happen as well, but somehow He even works those things to good, right? And He gets it
Okay.
all together in this unified package that looks completely different than maybe you originally looked.
Mm-hmm.
But he's turned it
Mm-hmm.
into something. I always liken it to if I started out as a cup and I got broken into pieces, and God kind of started working on me again and pulling and throwing me on the wheel and going in different directions. The next thing you know, I'm this pitcher, and now he uses me to pour into a whole bunch of other cups.
Right.
And so I feel like everyone has something they're passionate about, and it's never right or wrong. Whatever your thing is, that's
Right.
your thing. We were all created uniquely, and
Right.
everyone has life experiences and things that they've either grown through or things that they have a heart for. And most of the people that I interview on my podcast, that's what we find. We start in people's childhood and work up to what they're doing now. And you can see the thread, you can see the theme every
Right.
single time. It's always there. Something they went through or experienced mixed with the talents that they were given, those two end up being their purpose and calling or
Right.
their superpower. Yeah.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
How I'm just on a little side tangent on your podcast here. How it's called A Cup of Gratitude, and how long has it been on?
It's been about 3.5 years. I started
Okay.
a year into the pandemic in January of 2021. Um, I was taking care of my parents. I moved to take care of them during the pandemic and was shut off from everything and everyone. I had to shut down everything I was doing as far as speaking or books or any kind of in-person ministry. And I was about a year into taking care of my parents. It was just, for me, it was so difficult not being around people. I'm such a people person. And I said, God, I'm okay with this for as long as you want me to do it. I'm 4.5 years in. So obviously that's true, but I miss sharing the gospel. I miss
Mm,
sharing. And the next thing I know, I didn't even listen to podcasts. I'm buying a microphone online and converting an old closet in this 1600s farmhouse into a podcast booth. And God's
wow.
so amazing because I can't take credit. Yes, I've done my due diligence, but he's taken this thing into like 110 countries and 3,000 cities. It's in the top 1.5% of podcasts all over the world.
Right.
I'm in a closet in a pandemic in the middle of nowhere. The only thing I think that made it take off was that I wanted to tell his story through telling the stories of his children. And so that's what I do. And in it, we look at how do we find the good and the bad? How do we see how God was working? Where did I miss him? Because I was so busy living in that moment that I didn't even see I wasn't alone,
Right.
and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for following that, whatever you want to call it, nudge or prompting or what have you. You're continuing to put a lot of good into the world and helping other people find and cultivate that gratitude. So that is a really beautiful, wonderful thing.
Thank you. In the same way you're talking about superpowers, right? I talk about our story, and
Right.
that's the thing that I think that has really become my thing that I do. And I'm actually working on a book right now, that's going to get published in 2025 to help people learn how to share their story. I think there are so many people that don't either see that it's valuable, they don't think it's dramatic enough or exciting enough,
Yes.
they're comparing it to other people, but they don't see there's this beautiful value, and your story is going to reach people that mine won't. Mine will reach people that yours won't. And we're all created. And I always say it's like as if God were trying to throw a net over the world, right? Picture this chair behind me with this, he's throwing that over the world. But there's all these holes in it because some people won't get up and speak.
Yes. Yes. And you're right. Some people think they don't have a story. I used to, for a church that I attended at the time, put together in women's ministry speaking events where 3 or 4 women would share their story, a part of their story. And I can remember ultimately asking the pastor, we were a few years in, asking the pastor's wife, hey, would you, come tell your story? And she's like, oh, I don't have one. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what? What? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. You've got lots of chapters in your story. And you're
It's
right. Some people feel
amazing.
that it has to be this big dramatic thing, and it doesn't. It
I,
doesn't.
I had somebody on who I was on their podcast, and we became friends. And in our friendship, I said, hey, why don't you come on mine? And he said the same thing. I don't have a story. I said, wait a minute. I was like,
Yes.
well, I said, will you let me help you find out what your story is? And so it was really cool. When we were done, he said, wow, I do have a story, So
Oh, see, yeah, that's great. That's
I
so
think
great.
I think what you're doing and what I'm doing is we're allowing people to think for a minute. The
Yes.
little things are the big things. They really are.
Right. Gosh, that's so true. Well, is there anything else that you want to add as we wrap up here, Amanda? This has been a wonderful conversation.
No, just thank you so much for inviting me on. I know I'm going to have you on my podcast in the future as well.
Yes.
And any opportunity I ever get to talk about the things God has me doing, I love to say yes to. I would just say, I would encourage people to make a habit out of trying to start your day grateful. So the last thing I would say is the way God made our brains is there's a neural network in there. And the more you repeat something, the more it happens. You could choose a blessing or a curse. So if you choose
Right.
to look for the good things over time, you create like this roadway in your brain, and you become expectant now for good things. Same thing happens with
Right.
bad things. So try to fire it up early in the morning. Just simple things. I'm alive. I can see. I have a roof over
Right.
my head. Go get some coffee and you'll be even happier, you know? And once you fired it up, you'll start noticing that you're seeing more good things. So that's what I would
Right.
say.
Well, that's great. Cultivating a habit, you have to kind of shift the mindset and actually practice it. And it's a small thing. Small things can lead to big change. And I
Right.
would imagine that you believe that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Amanda. This has been an absolute pleasure, and you have really blessed my day, and you've given me a lot of good nuggets to chew on, which I will be chewing on.
Well, thank you so much for having me again. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to when we have our next conversation.
I agree. Thank you so much.